So just snap your fingers, all right?
Okay, Counselor Smith, can you hear us now?
I can.
Okay, thank you very much. We're still not up to snuff here, but we're gonna make do.
The unlicensed room still shows a muted microphone.
Yeah, it's still dead.
Copy.
And I did provide the counselors with the documents that has some notes of some talking points in that we should probably just to give you a primer. And do you want me to collect the other documents, or are you going to keep those yourselves, or do you want me to distribute those back to you later for the review?
For the review?
Yeah. Do you want me to collect yours that you have?
I'm gonna keep mine because you have it electronically, but this is an extra that should now. And that bundle there, Chad, down. Oh, thank you. I know. Yeah, me too. Okay, are we ready to go then?
I think so. Just to double check, Counselor Carrie Smith, can you give me a heads up or a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right, well, we got one from Brent. All right, we'll just make sure we talk loud.
Yeah.
Because of that. Thank you.
So can people join now from home?
Yes, and so
Yeah,
far,
you
it
can
looks like
see
we've got
that
two.
Cameron and
We've got 21 participants
ours is
online
on
right now.
there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the Gerhart City Council work session to order. The purpose of the work session is to discuss the fire police station election outcome and UGB land swap. While the public is allowed to attend the work session, there will be no public comment. My hope is that we spend about till 8 o'clock on this, and we can get into as much detail as y'all like to do. I mostly want to get a debrief from all of you, and any brainstorming that we want to do about ideas would be great as well. Obviously, with the bond going down 66 to 34%, we did not hit it right. I've had plenty of chance to reflect on that, where my orientation is very heavily towards resiliency and emergency management. It's something that I've worked with in the past and been interested in for many years. It felt like an ideal solution for our fire station. To me, obviously I was wrong, and more than happy to assist in the process going forward. One of the things, I got a card from Joy Sigler right after I became mayor. It says, you can't please everybody all the time. You're not a cupcake. I reflect on that frequently, And, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So we can go round. I'd like to start with Brent. Brent put his heart and soul into trying to make this bond happen, and I'm appreciative of all the work that he did. And if you want to just riff for a little bit on where you're at right now and what you see maybe going forward. Brent, you're muted.
No, it's still muted, Counselor.
He knows his is freezing too.
Oh, okay. That's odd. I've not.
There we go.
Okay. I hit the unmute about a dozen times. It did not work. Sorry. And Mayor, did you say that I should riff?
Yeah, I did.
Wasn't expecting to riff, but I'll give it a shot. I too think that the Highlands Lane site makes the most sense for a resilient site. That I still see it as the most resilient in our area. I think there was a multitude of reasons why people voted no. Some of them well, many reasons. So, you know, was it the butterflies? Was it the water contamination of the rivers? Was it the fact that it was not in traditional downtown Gerhardt? I think all of those played a factor. Was it a lot of money? Yes. It will be a lot of money wherever we build it. I think it's probably inaccurate that rebuilding at the current location, if we have to move public works to someplace else, that all of those moving costs, temporary location of a fire station will have to come into play. I think it's going to cost a lot more money than those who voted no realize. And the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost. So I think we need to listen to our experts, the people who know geology, the people who are experts in police and fire station design. We have a lot of opinions from a lot of passionate people. I recognize that. But they don't have a whole lot of experience designing police stations and fire stations in the 21st century. So where do we go from here? I'd like to bring in the experts and have some virtual town halls. And allow people to express opinions, whether they are educated opinions or not. And we've got to find a place to move forward. So that's about all for now.
Statements should be on.
What's that?
Thank you, Brent. Carrie, do you have some thoughts? You are muted.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I do have some thoughts. I would like to see a town hall
I'd like to see a town hall and use the voting apparatus that Scappoose has, if we can talk them into loaning it to us, where we can get instant feedback from the population of Gerhart and find out just what they're willing to spend and where they're willing to spend it. Because even though we know how resilient that area would be for a fire station, apparently people have a passion for having the fire department somewhere else. And I'd like to know what they're willing to do and how much they're willing to spend. That's what I've got to say about it.
Okay. I do have one question, since both of you have mentioned town halls. Would that suffice as a survey? Then I had made a comment for the paper about surveying the public. Do you both see a town hall as meeting that need to get that kind of direct feedback?
I do.
I would like to see both surveys and town halls with a Zoom option, facilitated by a neutral third party, nobody affiliated with the city conducting the town hall. We should have experts from the state and the county, emergency preparedness, architects who are familiar with police and fire station design, providing expert testimony rather than personal opinion. I think we also need to do some education on the interaction between Gerhart Volunteer Fire Department and the broader Gerhart Rural Fire Protection District, and bring the Rural Fire Protection District more into the process, because the people of Gerhart forget that the 2 square miles of Gerhart is only a small fraction of the service area that the fire department serves, that the response time for our firefighters includes the 26 square miles outside of the city limits to the east and north of Gerhart. And there's more people and more structures outside of the city limits than in. And they are also reliant upon our volunteer fire department, and they compensate us for that. So there's got to be an education process and bringing in the Rural Fire Protection District, because they're going to benefit also from wherever a new modern fire station is built.
Yeah, I understand where both sides of the issue are on this. You know, at one point I was very torn. It's having grown up here, it's hard to see the fire station leave the center of town. I have a kid here who loves to walk down the fire station. It's just a wonderful place for it to be. But I'm also torn on the resiliency factor. Are we spending money on something that might not be there tomorrow, 10 years from now? So that it all plays a role in kind of how you see it and how you kind of think about it. And so I do want to go back to the public and do a survey, a town hall. Oftentimes those town halls, you know, not everybody wants to come up and speak publicly. So, you know, voicing their opinion in the back corner, you it down on paper is something that some people are more comfortable doing. So I think both are a good thing to have. One of the things I brought up too at the other work session was, the UGB swap and how that might have played a role in the decision factor of some of these people. And just having that be more of an open process if we decided to move forward with that. I know that kind of maybe wasn't so upfront in some sense, and how that factor negotiations kind of been going on. We have development that's coming in, so I know that people probably might have been swayed by that at some point. So yeah, I'd love to get moving forward on this issue and see it, come to fruition at some point, and support the firefighters and our volunteers. I know that our volunteers are limited. I know that we're losing volunteers. A lot of our volunteers don't have housing in the city. So if that's what we want to stick with, the volunteer fire department, we need to be supportive of them. We have to come up with a viable solution for both the fire station being resilient and a good location for the rest of the city, and also supporting those volunteers and their ability to stay within the department. So.
Rita?
Well, after the vote, and it was overwhelming, I woke up the next day and said, well, unless they put the fire station back in the middle of town, it will not be as loved. Because people love the fire station. They didn't like the location and they didn't like the cost. So if the cost had been the same, but it would still be here in town, I think it would have been a lot better. And I was really happy, it's odd to say, that the vote was so overwhelming, because it really showed what the community thought. And back to what Brent was saying about getting experts versus personal opinion, it was personal opinion that carried the vote. And we had not a lot of experts, but we had experts there. And the personal opinion is what carried the town, because this town is a town full of personal opinions. So I'm at a quandary. I mean, all you people have suggestions. I don't have any suggestions. I would like to hear what our fire chief has to say. I don't know if he's going to or be able to, but the people spoke, and the city council is listening. I wish there was a good answer. I wish I had a good answer. I just know that I don't. But I would agree with you guys. You spoke. See, I have nothing to say. Shouldn't have said anything.
I do have one question. I got an email from a person in town suggesting that a survey should be anonymous. Of course, if you have an anonymous survey, you gotta have some sort of a mechanism to not know that you're getting multiple surveys from the same computer address, or some other counting mechanism so that, people aren't putting in more than one survey. But do any of you have any comments about anonymity with regard to a survey? I know when we did the park survey, we actually required an address. And we limited it to one survey per family unit. Any thoughts on the idea of surveying and those 2 points? I'm just going to use the same order again. Brent? Any comments?
There must be a thing. We took ours out as well.
That's weird.
Okay, there we go, finally. I don't know if I'm blocked from unmuting myself, but it's okay now. I am not in favor of anonymous surveys because that is impossible to track, really. I think we've done non-anonymous surveys in the past. If somebody's concerned about using their name, then they don't have to do a survey. But we should survey, we should find out the rationale behind the reasons for the way the vote went. Not everybody voted no for the same reason. And it would be nice to know what the main reasons were. You know, I've got a neighbor who had a sign in his yard, only one on the street, and it says 14.5 million, too much money. But then he said, no, it's not about money. It's just don't like it. And then ironically, for twice the amount of what would have cost him for the annual bond cost, he pays that for Oregonian delivery to his driveway, and said money isn't an issue. But I'm just stumped at what different people have the rationale behind voting no. And the location, yes, it's 1.7 miles away. Others have said, let's just let Seaside take over our fire department, and that's 2.8 miles away. So I'm having trouble with consistency and consistent logic. So I'd really like to know, I think a survey would be helpful. I think a town hall facilitated by outsiders would be helpful to tease these answers out.
Terry, any further comments on survey or town hall?
Well, I'll just go back to what I originally said, and, you know, Betsy, when she offered to talk to Scappoose to allow us, these are instantaneous results in a town hall meeting. You get a little machine that has a yes or no on it, and you push the button and it comes up on the screen, and you've got your anonymity and you've got instant results. I mean, it's a survey's good as long as it's not a biased survey and is a real survey. But a town hall where you have instantaneous responses to questions that are yes or no, would you spend $8 million for a fire hall? Yes or no? Would you build it downtown? Yes or no? Would you build it up at the Highlands land? Yes or no? These are things that are concrete, and since each person that comes into a town hall would receive a voting machine, then you would have an accurate count and people wouldn't feel threatened or put off because they may be associated with their answers. But that's my feeling. That's all.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
I've just confirmed that we can borrow Scappoose's machines for one or a couple town hall meetings. They also let me know it is a subscription service, so we would have to pay the subscription. They believe that amount is $1,000. In the grand scheme of what polling and data and all that costs, that seems like a modest amount, but I just want to make sure that everyone has accurate information on the front end. And then just an observation, it's been stated that the rural protection district is larger than the city. It certainly is. One thing to maybe consider is we're looking at feasibility and how to pay for something going forward, regardless of where it's located. And regardless of cost, is that it might make sense to see whether that could be spread out over that larger geographic area to more homeowners whose fire insurance rates are absolutely impacted by our response time. You know, that would probably lower the cost for Gearhart residents and might make them think that whatever was being proposed was more equitable. I don't know that that's the case, but that might be something to consider. Special districts are able to go out for bonding as well as cities.
So something like the firefighters that are servicing in the district, I mean, they are a part of the GDFD. And they do their training here in our facilities. Is that correct?
We're all the same firefighters, so actually the employer, if you will, for the volunteers is that particular station. We lend that particular station's services and the people within it out to the Rural Fire Protection District. And also to be clear, I don't want to minimize what the Rural Fire Protection District is already doing for us.
Right.
They already pay a couple of $100,000 for that protection. Whether or not that's equitable, we can get into that. They were also raised their amount that they brought to us to bring firefighter Hutchinson in. So the amount that they were paying, the entire amount for Hutchinson, they upped on their own to take care of that. Tax-wise, I believe the Rural Fire Protection District residents actually pay more cost per thousand than the city of Gearhart residents do, based on valuation is part of it. But the other part is that they have a levy that they use to help provide for equipment, truck maintenance, maintenance of the station that the Rural Fire Protection District provided. It wasn't the city of Gearhart that bought that. There were no tax dollars that I can recall, no, that Gearhart used for that station. So they're providing us with the station, they're paying us yearly. They also have a levy to help with equipment, and they do support the firefighters heavily. They have a board there already, and they're very much into it. But the comment about bringing them in and spending some more time with them, yeah, and I think that all needs to be explored and whether or not it's equitable. We are looking still cheap, I think at about 50-50 in regards to calls, district and city.
Any other comments about surveys or anonymity?
I like Carrie's idea.
Okay. I would like to spend the last half of this time talking a little bit about a short-term plan, because doing these things, the town halls, getting a survey, analyzing that, and making a plan moving forward is going to take probably the better part of this year, maybe 6 months. And are there things that we should be talking about to provide a safer environment for the firefighters? And specifically, what comes to mind for me is decontamination, exhaust fumes, and Chief Como, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that because you're well aware of the regulations. And if we could just get some thoughts, probably start with you and Chad about what we might be able to do in the short term.
Yeah, we probably have to start putting a list together of hit list, sort of, and what we need to look at. It's hard to see anything here going in place because we're super limited on site. And everything's right on top of each other. When you look at decontamination and say things as far as our turnouts, even the air we breathe in our air tanks, If an apparatus is running, we have to wait 30 minutes till we can fill air bottles because all the diesel fumes have to escape the facility. If we get a call while it's running, we have to shut it off and respond to the call. All of our turnouts are contaminated with diesel fumes every time we go to a call. So trying to block those off isn't really feasible because there's no room to block them off. You block them off, and there's no room to go through there. So looking at what we can do and what's available, just with the space wise, we kind of need to, I think, look at a big picture and see what's available, what our options are. Putting a facility together that's one, safe for the firefighters, so we can do our job, but in turn, it makes it better able to serve the community. Better able to do our jobs better. So it's kind of twofold when you look at it. There's multiple. When we looked at putting a station together, a whole package, we didn't just pick a number out of the air and say 13,000 square foot looks good. Now see how we can. A list was put together, a list of needs, and then it was added up, and it was how much does that equal? So going from one thing to another, because we're really bursting at the seams where we're at space wise. It's hard to train because our meeting room is a small meeting room. Training rooms, people have their Wednesday night trainings, not a training facility. We need to look at a big picture and see what's the most important items. Obviously, health and safety and decon and stuff is very important for firefighters, for the gear and for our firefighters. Personally, we want to have firefighters, we want to have a volunteer department, right? And the station was sort of built around volunteers in the volunteer department. It wasn't built around anything else, but that's the community. It wasn't built. Let's see how we can put a station together and not build a full-time curriculum. That's not what it was at all. So, kind of re-putting heads together and talking with other communities that are involved in the same things and the same situation, I think is a good place to start. Where we can kind of collect some thoughts.
So you'll be talking to some of your counterparts?
Yeah.
Like your turnouts, you said they get contaminated when you go out on the call.
When we go out on any call, because all the fumes from all the apparatus is locked in the building. There's no, there's nothing to suck all the fumes out. Some stations have tubes hooked up to exhaust, some stations have exhaust systems on the roof. And then additionally, all new stations, it's a separate room that all turnouts are in, so it's all blocked off. So anytime an apparatus is started in there, it contaminates everything in the facility.
Does it air out eventually?
Eventually, and that's what the 30-minute rule is for our SCBAs, our air apparatus. But with all soft materials and stuff, it just soaks up and absorbs. Like you sit around a campfire, you go home. You go camping for a week and you didn't wear something in the tent the whole time, it smells like a campfire. So it's all getting abused by it all the time.
How do you launder those?
We have an extractor over there, which is, it isn't a washer, it isn't a dryer, it's an extractor. It gets really hot and spins everything out. There's a special soap. And there we can fit, when it's really packed tight, only 2 sets of turnouts in there. And then we have to dry those. The previous chief and myself built a drying rack that dries 2 sets in about 4 to 6 hours. But without that, it takes about 24 hours to dry a set. So then we're looking at a whole backup set for firefighters because they don't have anything to respond. To clean your gear, you have to take it apart. There's an inside layer, a thermal layer, and an outside fire. You take it apart. Soaks up a lot of water. And the extractor does what it can to spin super fast and all that out. But you still can't turn around and put that on. So you have to have a backup set of gear for every person. That's one thing. And you
But
can't.
we don't have that.
Correct. No. 2 sets. I just purchased 2 sets this year, and that's $7,000. And that's just the pants and the coat. That's not the gloves, not the Nomex hood, not the boots, not the helmet or anything. It's just the pants and the coat. So yeah.
Like medical equipment.
What's that?
It's like medical
Yeah,
equipment.
exactly. And with it even has a lifespan. 10 years is how long you're supposed to have. So we're doing a really good job on rotating gear through, keeping people up. There's a couple people just because of the rotation things, they do have a backup set, but I wouldn't even say even half of them have a backup. We'll switch that out. It is suggested that it's washed at least every 6 months. We have to wash it after every structure fire. And when you go in there, you're just coated with everything. When you go in there. Because of our facility and having all the apparatus and the fumes in there, about every 3 months is what each person should be washed on a year. Because every 6 months is a normal station that has the facilities that be closed away and barricaded off. And it's just regular training and stuff with your gear and you get the contaminants off. We'll even go to a car crash and contaminants on our gear with oils and everything spread on the highway and food and stuff.
It's probably a stupid question, but I'll ask it
Yeah.
anyway. Why not put the trucks in head first and let the exhaust go out the door?
Because then it would take us longer to respond. And then we're backing out onto the road and we have to have backers when we get out, back out and turn around, then they have to get back in the apparatus. And then respond. You could put a turntable and go and turn it around.
And there's various places, all the apparatus is exhausted in different spots. Really what a department does is they connect a hose to the exhaust system. That hose and a pump pumps it out after they start. And once the truck leaves, the room continues to air out. And that's a requirement for us to be able to do that. I think that with Deerheart being scrappy, the fire department being scrappy, they have gone a long time without having these things taken care of because they've always envisioned, well, maybe since 2006 that they would get a new fire station eventually. In 2006, we had the current location on the ballot for 3.7 million, and it was no 58%, yes 50 or 41%. So since then, we've been talking about, okay, we need to continue to upgrade this, but why spend the money on a building that really couldn't handle it anyway? Roof structure can't take any more, the walls are hollow and that sort of thing. That and cancer is something that we're paying very much attention to. Firefighters should just be a bunch of tough people that would go in there and they would maybe even choose not to wear self-contained breathing apparatuses, but we have much better information on the science about what's going on and how to stay healthy. And we're trying to implement as many of those things as possible. But the fire station doesn't look like it did when I joined. It's a completely different place. When I joined, I think Pessinen was the chief, Randy Kurz was just chief, and before that, Pest and Devereaux. We were under 200 calls a year. We didn't have the training that we had. We didn't have the requirements for the training that we had. We didn't have the NFPA requirements for all of that. So this last year, you know, we go from under 200 calls in 97 to 660 calls with the same amount of volunteers. We're exposed more to all of these things. So yes, it's very important for us to take care of those. We'll have to put together a list of things that we can do in the meantime. Once we get an understanding of where the council is at and how to move forward, then I think that we can come up with a plan that says, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this that will at least help with the situation without spending a lot of money, and then move forward with a new fire station, because I think that's what most people think. Most people in Deerheart, the majority, I think the huge majority, want the firefighters to have a new fire station. That's not the issue. It has to do with the cost of the location, difficulty to get it there, size, you know, and those are things that I think that we really need to key in on. But it's a different station than it was even 5 years ago. We're much busier than we used to be. 22.5% increase in Deerheart population over the last census. And I don't believe that was over the last 10 years. I think most of that was potentially over the last 5. Before that, we were looking at a 6.4% increase year over year. We're getting more day trippers. We have more houses full. Second homeowners, vacation rentals aside, second homeowners are choosing to live here in higher quantities. They were during COVID, and I don't know if this is going to last. They were able to bring their families down, do school, work from using Zoom and all of that. And that's indicative in the amount of work that everybody's been doing here. And it's not going to change. I don't think that any of these numbers are going to go down. We were anticipating almost 800 calls this year, but I think things have slowed down a little bit. We'll probably go from 660 to potentially 770. It's just a guess for where we're at for this upcoming year because of, what it's looking like. We're ahead of last year by,
So last year, we were ahead of the year before by 21%. This year, we're ahead of last year by 33% to date, not by 20.
and summer hasn't started. And this is when things get really busy.
I think today was called 265, I think.
But our volunteers are the most important part of all this, and those are the ones that we need to take care of. So we'll come up with some solutions once we get more of a timeline for, how we're moving forward, but start right away.
So you and I can work on timelines for some of the things that we've talked about. We can discuss it more at council tomorrow. And then hopefully you could give us some sort of a report next month with regard to some short-term things that you see might be beneficial, looking mostly at safety for the volunteers and staff. I feel like we've got a little bit of a rough plan for moving forward. We can make some final decisions at council tomorrow with regard to what we've discussed tonight. We don't make decisions at work sessions. I'll just go around and see if there's any final thoughts. And Brent?
I think I've spoken enough and I've said what I'd like to say.
Carrie?
I have agree with Brent. I've said what I've had to say. I really think that we need to think about this Scappoose voting machine and town hall it. That's all.
Is Peter still on the call?
I don't see him on the board.
Yeah, he's still there.
Peter, if you have any final thoughts, could you talk now?
He's actually gone.
Okay. And Rita?
Well, I want to thank Chief Como for his comments because I've learned more in the last 10 minutes about some of the fire station needs. I knew a lot, but I didn't know that. So thank you so much, Chief, for your information. That was awesome, of course.
Austin?
The only thing I would add to that is, I think we need that short-term list sooner than later, because regardless if we decide to go for a November ballot or next spring ballot, you're gonna need, and that building time for whatever we put together is gonna be long, so the sooner we get you guys that now is better, so.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Okay, Chad, final thoughts?
I put together a bunch of information on this sheet that shows some of the, of course, the election results that we just talked about. The election results from 2006. Also wanted to reflect a little bit on the surveys that we conducted. Surveys are difficult, very scientific, very easy to mess up. And for example, the two surveys that we did in 2021, we had 554 persons responding. And they were asked particularly about the Highlands Cottages site. And out of that 554, 64.44% answered yes to the Highlands Cottage site. But that was presented at an idea of about 10.5 million. It wasn't the 14.5 and the cost that we learned when we were moving forward with it. That also doesn't really entail all of the rigmarole, the difficult things you know, the swap idea, the water idea, and all that. That really created some issues. And I don't know that people were fully aware of all of that. And so those that were against brought all that up, and people were definitely open to those questions. In January 19, we compiled 947 persons responding to a survey. 50.1% at that point preferred High Point. 38.3% favored the current location. So with the city council being involved in emergency management, this is what we do. Public safety is a big part of this. This is what's on our minds all the time. And if you're looking at those surveys, you might infer that, okay, it looks like people want something that's of greater elevation out of the tsunami inundation zone. But I'm learning, and I've talked to a lot of people, the two biggest issues on this were the pricing and the desire to keep it downtown. That was big, and so that was something that we're going to have to work with. And then on the side, you know, the other things, you know, the complexity with the UGB exchange and the water. And then part of it is also tsunami fatigue. There are people that just don't want to, they don't feel the need to prepare as much as the council or the staff wants to prepare. They've heard a lot of years about this. Other communities have gone through this time and time again. The school system, the first time they went out, they lost 66 to 30, almost exactly the way we lost. They reconnoitered, broke about $40 million out of there, rebuilt. People voted for it, almost 66 to 33, just because they brought the price down and kept it in the same location. I don't know what the answers are to that, but I know that there's been some challenges with the construction of that site because of the amount of money that they received. Whether or not they had enough, or currently that they're out of classrooms. They're full. So there was also, Cannon Beach has been working for almost 30 years on trying to get their city hall out of the inundation zone. And they're meeting with the same sort of resistance. Their last iteration of their city hall and their police station was going to be $17 million. And it looks like they're probably going to end up putting it in the same place, in the inundation zone. I talked to a couple of the commissioners, one today with the county. And while the moving of the public works and all that sounded like a good idea, when they got down to brass tacks, they decided to not do that, to keep the current location and maybe figure out a way to store some things out. And I know Tiffany is here with emergency management. If I'm saying anything really incorrect, just wave me down, please. But I know they're still working on that situation, as are other communities. Seaside is going to be thinking about the same thing, and Astoria is thinking about the same thing as well. But I don't know if tsunami fatigue is taking its toll on people. They don't want to talk about it as much. They maybe think it's not going to happen, or if it does happen, there's nothing we can do to prepare. And that's the same sort of thing that kind of kept your heart back for the 20 years before they even tried to get the 2006 fire station going. So there's a lot of things to learn, very complicated, but those are some of the things that in all the conversations I've had, and I've reached out to a lot of people, not all of them, and a very small minority of actually who voted, but I'm trying to bust out and talk to people that are some of the old timers around here, some of the new timers that are around here, the part-timers, full-timers, all of that, and they all have different opinions, and even people that voted yes, getting their concerns out, because there were concerns from them also. There's a few people that kind of had to hold their nose to vote yes for this because of the cost and the design and that sort of thing. We've learned a lot of information. We've got a lot of information. We know some of the directions that are probably directions that we will want to head in the future. But getting people together, I think, is a good idea. Trying to figure out a way to do that productively, you know, anonymously is really, really tough. It's really tough. I could put out 5 no votes on something myself, and you never know it was 5 times me. But there are some ways around it. Maybe And I talked to Don Bohm today, maybe it's using a third-party group to help with that. You know, that's a possibility as well. He had some ideas because they've hit some big losses in Washington County, hired consultants, did some work with phone calls and surveys, went back at it, and then won. Based on that. So that's my thoughts. That's this document here with some of that information, and some talking points, and so some things that we can think through moving forward. That's all I have for now.
And thank you for providing us the reminder for the surveys that we had done and kind of forgotten that we did the second one.
Well, I can understand the decision that was made to put it high, and I think it was worth going for. Just messier than we would have liked, and definitely heard the outcome.
Okay. Justine, got anything? We ready to adjourn?
Are we gonna talk about this tomorrow?
You want to talk about the survey?
No, are we talking about this tomorrow then?
Well, if we want to firm up any kind of a plan with regard to town halls or surveys, then we should probably get a consensus type vote or vote tomorrow. I was going to do something in my mayor's report, so we might be able to just do it there. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I should move the adjourn.
A second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the work session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carrie, you want to vote?
I said aye, but I was muted, so I'm still saying aye.
Motion carried. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councilors.
We'll see you all tomorrow.
Yep. Same time, same place, same station.
Yeah.